Curious Sports Pulse. This is Provide the Spark. We are here. We have a lot to get to, and we're gonna stay a little more away from the NBA. We will get to some of the comments from Kendrick Perkins on Rudy Gobert or about Rudy Gobert recently. We'll get to that in a little bit. But today I want to focus on a little bit of a football topic first with Drake May and the Patriots. And then also I and I guess I misspoke. So we are talking NBA, but I kind of want to take a little bit of a historical analysis because with everything going on, with all of the events, all the debates that are now starting to really take shape in terms of who's the best, who's up and coming, and who best of all time. Shout out to Stan Van Gundy for bringing up this debate and this discussion. I want to, and this then came across my Twitter timeline in terms of who's the best between Chris Paul and Allen Iverson. I think that's a really interesting discussion. But like I said, first and foremost, we want to go with Drake May. So Drake May signs his rookie deal with the New England Patriots. 4-year, $36.6 million contract, $23.5 million signing bonus. And so us bringing up this story isn't so much about analyzing the contract itself. That's not really what we do here. There are some people that are really good at that aspect, and that won't be us, at least for the time being. But instead, I bring this up because I want to kind of ask, what are reasonable expectations for Drake May right now? What is something that can be expected? What is something that we could see with this team? So as of right now, it's known that Jacoby Brissett is QB1, and officially Drake May is competing for that starting position. I mean, I think that's more or less coaches talk. Now, there are two lines of thought here, and hear me out. Oh, first we have a comment. This is Eleni or Elaine Arroy. You can reach us at Curious Sports Pulse on the Discord, and I'll get back to you. Always interested in upping my graphics game, so appreciate you reaching out. And I love the little green things right here, the little green angels. But yeah, reach out to us, Curious Sports Pulse on the Discord or Sports Pulse 100 on the Twitter, and we'll parlay. Again, I don't understand pirate, I just speak it. But back to Drake May. He's officially, as of right now, QB2 on the New England Patriots. And could that be Gerard Mayo just kind of taking care of? Could that be him just kind of taking care of Drake May, managing expectations, not putting too much pressure on him so soon? Possible. That's possible. But overall, do I expect him to soon be QB1 this year for sure if he isn't from the very beginning? I mean, yeah, I think that's more than reasonable. So, with this, with how everything's come kind of unfolded, with what we're seeing, I think it's very much reasonable that he gets the start. And now I said there are two lines of thinking because hear me out. I don't know if him starting is the best. We've seen, especially as of late, in terms of the QBs who are thriving, the QBs who have that longer runway where you say, okay, they stand a chance of possibly making a deep playoff run. We see those QBs tend to be ones who initially sat. We're seeing that those tend to be QBs who did not get that start right away, and who had to learn the system, who learned under a veteran, and probably most importantly, weren't thrown into the wolves right away, right off the bat. That's probably most important to consider. So, is that the exact scenario that we have here in New England for Drake May? Absolutely not. Why? Because I mean, Aaron Rodgers had to sit behind Brett Favre, right? Tom Brady had to sit behind Drew Bledsoe. Patrick Mahomes, even though Alex Smith isn't in the same conversation as those two guys, Alex Smith was capable. He was a capable starter. Jacoby Brissett is not at that level, not the level of Alex Smith, let alone the other two quarterbacks who I mentioned. But either way, and that's not really a knock on Brissett. He's a very serviceable quarterback, a great locker room presence, which is and someone who you want on your team, and someone who can fill in as needed, which is more than what you can say for a lot of players in this league. So, not at all a knock on Jacoby Brissett, just being realistic, tampering expectations. I think that's appropriate, and that's about how we should evaluate him in terms of his overall potential impact or non-impact in the league. So, when saying all that, Drake May learning from Jacoby Brissett situation that we see. And what do I mean by that specifically? Brian Hoyer, really great second slash backup QB, knows what's expected and is more than willing to show the ropes. So I think that's something we can expect out of Jacoby Brissett. And then as needed slash if needed is someone who can give a boost. The bench, God forbid something happens to Drake May when he does become the starter. That is then where we see him potentially. But go ahead. We have North Carolina's own E-Rock. So I don't know if you saw, but Drake May signed that 4-year deal. I'm just kind of setting expectations for Drake May at the moment. So go ahead. He's your guy. Go ahead.
Oh, he is my guy. He's the best quarterback in this class, in my opinion. But again, yeah, I'm biased. I have no problem saying it. I'm biased. But you know what? He deserves it. If you watched him, a lot of people didn't watch him play because he's not in the main two conferences. But it's if you watch him though, man, that dude can ball, and he does ball. So I mean, I didn't know he signed a 4-year contract extension. That is news to me. But that's actually pretty cool. Actually, I guess I don't know if that's standard for rookies, but I mean he's got to start from day one. I feel like. I mean, I don't see why he wouldn't because having Jacoby Brissett is a great asset. Because he's a great backup. So
Yes.
we got an NC State, like you said. I don't know about the Brian Hoyer comparison. I think Jacoby Brissett's probably a step above that, but I see where you're coming from. Jacoby Brissett is also I love it. It's an NC State backup and a North Carolina starter. There you go, all in the middle of Boston. So yeah, I mean, I could see Drake May now. They need to surround him with. I mean, I'm really curious to see what Gerard Mayo. Still sounds so weird just him being a coach. Gerard Mayo can actually work out with him and what kind of offensive system he surrounds him with. And maybe who knows? Maybe he can have a year like CJ Stroud had because there's not going to be as much tape on him, and that sets up a sophomore year because I don't have CJ Stroud having as good of a year as he did. But that's off the subject.
Ooh.
Drake May is going to absolutely, I think, go in there and he's going to surprise some people. So between him and I was going to say Jaden McDaniels, but Jaden Daniels. Yeah, I mean,
Good
it's.
catch. Good catch.
I know, yeah. Well, it's basketball season. You hear it all damn time now. Jaden Daniels is absolutely going to go in and he's going to be good too. So it's going to be a tall. I don't know which one's going to be better. I think they're both going to be way better than Caleb Williams and JJ. So Mr. McCarthy. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. And no, my Brian Hoyer comparison was only because, right? I don't think you'd trust the franchise to either Brissett or Hoyer any day soon. But they're both good role players on the team within the culture. Um, and so I think, I mean, let's be real. Brissett at his best is a fringe starter in this league. I wouldn't want him starting 18 games for my team at any point. So that's more what I was saying. Regardless if you have Brissett or Hoyer better, I don't really care. But they're good veteran guys to have. Joe says, "Hey,
Hey.
but either way, let me make the case for not starting DrakeMaye. And I don't know how much you caught of my opening part of this. Not that he shouldn't, and not that he wouldn't be most deserving, especially depending on how camp plays out. But this is a bad New England team right now. And I don't want him getting the early yips. I don't want him putting too much, I don't want there being too much pressure on him early. This team needs a lot of help. And so I'm okay if he sits, and I know it's not realistic. I think probably 4 to 6 games is realistic, and then coming in, taking the pressure when New England is most likely 0-4, 0-5, or 1-4, 1-5. And then for him to come in, I just don't want him to be thrown into the Wolves right away. That's where I'm coming from in terms of I don't want to see him starting. Other than that, absolutely, by far he should get the start over Brissett. I think that's a no duh statement. But go ahead, what do you think about that?
My response to that is, well, it's fairly simple. We'll see what happens in training camp. If you feel like he's ready, don't force him to go out there. Don't force it. Don't put him into the lion's den. But if he outperforms Brissett, then he should start.
Then you have to. Then you have to. You're saying?
I mean, it's an honest quarterback competition, and if they're impressed by it, in a perfect world, perfect world for New England, that is. That then obviously it's a new start, new regime, and you would want to start with the new quarterback, the new face of the offense. That being said, because you already have one in Matthew Judon on defense, and then you'd have DrakeMaye in a ideal situation. Start fresh, start anew, rechristen the team. And, let's go. Then, not let's go there because I'm not a Patriots fan. I am a DrakeMaye fan, so I'll say that would be the ideal situation. Change faces, changing regimes.
Okay.
But don't force him. If you think he's still too raw to go out there, then play. But you have a viable option in Jacoby Brissett.
Okay, I like that, Iraq. And I'm going to give one final question for you that I want you to think about while we invite our next guest on. If it's close, if it's close in training camp and there's not a clear-cut winner, do you go with Brissett or Maye? But again, we want to hold your thoughts for a moment. Welcome, No Earmuffs Joe.
Yo, what's going on?
Hello. I don't know how much you heard, but DrakeMaye, he signed his 4-year rookie deal. A nice $20+ million signing bonus. So shout out to him. But either way,
first.
that's what we're. Yeah, I love hearing those stories, genuinely. But what we're discussing right now, Joe, is kind of what should we expect from DrakeMaye? Should he get the start right away because he was the first round pick? What are you thinking?
Well, from a business standpoint, I think you'd want him to start early. And I only say that because they have a 5th-year option on him, right? So it would make sense to maximize all the opportunity they can. I mean, look how lucky Houston got with CJ, and how that 5th year is going to play out. They had a whole year of awesome success. Now, are the Patriots built like the Texans are around them? No, right? So that's where you kind of like exercise caution, like maybe we do let him sit, because obviously we see the success on quarterbacks that have sat and then got put him in. See Patrick Mahomes, and see Jordan Love. There's obviously a positive to having the quarterback sit and watching before just throwing them out there. But yeah, I mean, if you want to maximize your roster and maximize the money allocated to the roster, you want to make sure your quarterback is the dude early. And then if he happens to be the dude early, awesome. Then you got a free year of like, hey, we were 500, or hey, we are definitely on the come up, that sort of deal. But yeah, if it's close, as you were saying, if it's close, you already know who Jacoby Brissett is. So you pretty much know what the ceiling is there. So why not put the guy out there?
Okay, and then I don't know. Did you remember my question? Did you need to repeat?
Yeah, well, yeah, he just reiterated it right there in the closing discussion. That's a really tough question, and I'm really no closer to an answer than when you asked, because it's. I still like it's competition. If it's close and there's no discernible, I would lean more towards Jacoby Brissett for a game or two, so he can get more acquainted with the offense. But that's a tough question. That is literally something that's behind the scenes. That's going to be Gerard Mayo's. That's going to be his first big test of coaching in his coaching career. I mean, his head coaching career. He's actually been a coach. Man, that's tough. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna plead ignorance on this. I'm just gonna say coach's discretion. I would lean more towards the veteran, because I don't want him to get out there, and don't invoke Pat Mahomes and Jordan Love in that, because they were already on teams that had a good quarterback and who were ironically were in the same draft. And had winning records. Or their team had winning records. So I mean.
Well, I mean, I did preface it by saying that, are they built like those? Are they built to sustain like a Stroud was? The stuff around them was built. No, it's not. So I did exercise caution there.
Yeah, for sure. And I will say this about the Patriots: they only have one really big advantage, and that is their defense, specifically their linebacking core, or their pass rush, I should say. Matthew Judon is a dog. He's a I'm not gonna say pit bull, because that gives pit bulls a bad name. I'm just gonna say he's a bloodhound, dude. He smells blood in the water. Or that's a sharp. He smells any kind of scent. He smells any kind of scent. He's gonna make his way over there. Fine, he's a shark then. I'll say he's a shark.
A Sharknado.
He's a Sharknado. That dude is a hoss. And their secondary got better most of the year. And I think their running back actually wasn't. I think that's who I'm thinking of. They just don't have receivers in an offensive line. Which is only just an offensive line receivers. Is Juju Smith-Schuster even playing for him anymore?
He got waived. If not, then he's on the waiving block.
God, thank God. That dude sucks, and that's a former Steeler right there. Another Steelers receiver that leads the team and sucks other places.
Literally 5 hours ago, it's Juju Smith-Schuster might get cut by New England. Yeah, no kidding.
There you go. Perfect time. I could sense it. No, it's like
nice, C-Rock.
Yeah, I can sense it's like a disturbance in the force. He's one of the many the line of receivers. The only ones that have beaten that curse is Plexico Burrs for the Giants, and Juju did it with. The only reason he had a Super Bowl is because he was on the Chiefs. So. I mean, he did play better in the playoffs, but it was he wasn't the main reason. Either way, yeah. So another Steelers receiver just down the tube. Hey, well, let's hope that's not true, because what's his name? The guy from Pittsburgh. I have a brain fart all of a sudden. It's not Pickens, but the other guy. He's on Deontay Johnson. Isn't that his name? Yeah, he's on the Panthers. Let's hope that curse doesn't carry. Let's hope that doesn't carry over. Yeah, I'm gonna hope that he can. Yeah, he's an outlier. But he's not Antonio Antonio Brown won with that was just a really good team. Antonio Brown's open basket case.
Look at you, E-Rock. You're in your bag right now, showing off your animal knowledge, your Pittsburgh wide receiver, skilled position players knowledge. Look at you. Speaking of a dog.
Yeah, there you go.
Or speaking of dogs, I should say. Allen Iverson, Chris Paul. This was a terrible segue. But
that was a terrible segue. I had no idea.
But that's not the point. The point is, this is all due to Stan Van Gundy's latest comments. He said, he said in Game 3, that Luka and Kyrie are the best backcourt ever, and so now people are making really erroneous comparisons and claims. This is one that I saw that I think deserves a little bit more discussion. So all time, who had the better career? And I didn't come up with this. This is something I saw on the Twitter sphere. So shout out Twitter. We're streaming on Twitter on Sports Plus 100, by the way. But Allen Iverson or Chris Paul? I think this is a little bit of I think this is legitimate. Chris Paul's going to have longevity. Allen Iverson had the higher peaks, in my opinion. But the totality of their two careers, which one would you pick? Joe, you first, please.
Me personally, I just really liked AI's vibe, man. Like, when he was in the game, you just always knew you had a shot to win the game. Like you just go into the arena knowing he can carry us. He can definitely carry us. And he was one of the people in the league that made it popular to drag a bag of chips and a Coke to the finals. People talk about how LeBron carried those Cavs teams. Listen,
a bag of Utz or a bag of Lances. A Lance isn't a Shasta, huh? Bag of Lances and a Shasta and an Archie.
If that team wasn't concocted of great value and Dollar General players, I don't know. Okay. There's guys like Matt Geiger.
What a deep cut.
Listen, Aaron McKee was a dog, all right? Aaron McKee was a dog, but you could get him from a bag of chips and a Coke if you really, really wanted them on your team. But they had to seek value in whatever money was left, because salary cap era and all that. But yeah, I mean, now, like you said, Chris Paul will get the longevity. Chris Paul will get the, ring or court general. He'll get all that acclaim. Two-way player. He'll get all of that jazz. But listen, how many games a season did Iverson play? Like, how many games? Like, he was in the non-load management era of basketball.
He played he would play most. I think most of his career, like 80% of his games, maybe when he played for the
42 minutes a game and drawing 12 fouls a game because he was always taking it to the rack. Was he the most efficient player? He was very Kobe-esque in that, Nate, and in that, he'll have a lot of 9 for 27s, still score 30 because he got to the line 20 times. But yeah, I just think like for the culture, for the swag, for the belief that anytime he was on the court, that team believed that they could win a game. I'd take Allen Iverson over Chris Paul, me personally.
I loved your reasoning, Joe. Go ahead, E-Rock.
You always got to put me on the spot and putting me in uncomfortable positions with Chris Paul. I'm literally.
Oh shoot!
Why are you always doing this to me, man? Because
let's take the Wake Forest part out of it, and let's just talk about.
No. That's not the point. It's that I coach in his winter and summer leagues.
Yeah, no.
And it's like, so he's like, I guess technically remotely my boss in some ways. And I'm like, why you always got to do this to me, man? You got to put me in an awkward position. And he's from my hometown, so yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Pretty much, the swagger was the really important part. Also, he was in a totally different. That was the baller era. With AI was there. It was the long cut shorts, like the way I like it. It was the baggy clothes, wore do-rags on the sideline before they cracked down, and then made. But in AI, man, he's not talking about practice. He ain't talking about practice. Talking about a game. He ain't talking about a game. Talking about practice. So
Now he's talking about cash backing.
now he's reviving his. He's running low on cash these days, so he's going to take advantage of it.
And we support growth here.
You do support growth. He put on a couple pounds too. You can already tell, but that'll happen. That'll happen. Look at MJ. I have to say, on the traditional sense of point guards, Chris Paul is a classic point guard, and he does that very, very well. He shoots mid range. Well, in his prime, we'll say his prime was the Clippers, the early Clipper days. That was like his prime. Late New Orleans. Here's the thing that's different. Chris Paul played on better teams, not at the beginning of his career, but he played on overall better teams. AI never played on a really good team, and the best player he ever played with, well, it's two people. He played 1 year, I think, with other AI, Andre Iguodala, and that was his rookie year. And then he played with Carmelo when he was on the Nuggets for a couple of years. He played with him and Marcus Camby. There's a name. Speaking of deep cuts, there you go. And he played with was it Nene? Played with Nene too. Yeah.
Ooh.
And he played with Fareed. And he also played with those teams were all right. They were coached by George Karl. Played with George Karl. Actually good. So that was a decent situation, but they never got past the first round or second round. So you got to give that to Chris Paul as well. He hasn't taken advantage of how would an AI done, because he's a score first, because he kind of had to be, and he could pass, but Chris Paul is a better floor general, like you said. If I'm building a team, all right, if I need my point guard to be my primary option, I'm going to pick AI, because my team, but I'm not building around that. If I need a person who's going to be a supplemental player who's going to increase the production of my main shooter, then I'm taking Chris Paul. That's what it is. And I don't think either of them really play particularly good defense. Chris Paul probably plays a touch better, but without getting him in trouble, I was like, if he watches this show, then that's awesome. If he watches my show, that's awesome too. But just in case, I'll leave it at that. But it depends. If I want to base it all around him, this person, it's AI. If I want to help everyone else on the court, and I got a primary scorer I don't know. What's a good example? KD is kind of an extreme answer, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So
Michael Jordan. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like something like that, or like a Jalen Brunson. Well, no, because they play the same position. Either way, you get or Ant Edwards, or an Ant Edwards. He would be perfect. He would be perfect for that. That's who. So I'd take Chris Paul probably overall, because in his prime. Not today, I would. Sorry, Chris, you can't even deny you're old. All right, you're older. All right, can't deny it.
Well, again, and E-Rock, you and I spoke about this yesterday. Joe, would love to get your thoughts on this. Chris Paul to the Clippers now this could be just fanboys or doing what we're doing in terms of trying to just get viewers and clicks, which again, I'm in favor of if you do it the right way. But that's beside the point. Joe, Chris Paul to the Clippers is getting traction. Let's pretend this works with the salary cap and whatever needs to happen. This is not a recipe for success. Chris Paul and whoever ends up being left on the Clippers, right? This is completely overblown. This is a dumb idea.
Yeah, I don't personally like it. We've seen what the combo. We've seen the combo of Chris Paul and James Harden before already.
Yay!
And they were a couple of hamstrings away from doing some damage against the Warriors. But point being, if he's gonna go back to somewhere he's been before, where there's actual value in his presence there, the Suns. the Suns were 1 point guard away from actually having a cohesive offense on a day-to-day basis, and they obviously didn't have the money to make that so, or didn't have the inclination to make that so, just because they didn't think he was, after that recent health situation, they didn't think he was worth keeping at the number, right? But this is a very kind of Pittsburgh Russell Wilson situation. For the right number,
Oh,
why not, right? If the number is right.
Ooh.
It's risk reward on there. If the number is right, why not, right? For a situation like Phoenix or a situation like LA, if they feel like he's going to provide value, it's just the what is the number and the risk reward that he'll play more than 60 games. That's what you kind of need to measure there, because he's at the stage of his career now where you really need to monitor what he's doing, right? And that's, in essence, why Golden State had him in the role that they had him in. Not including roster construction and all that, how they had it all set up over there. Him being over there was really mainly a luxury. It was more what they needed to shell out and bring in, sort of deal on that. But him at the right number could be serviceable, as long as the expectations and the number are tempered. I just don't like the Clippers deal, just because I've seen that backcourt already.
Yeah.
And they got Russell Westbrook too.
And well, I mean, I'm less worried about, if anything, that helps Russell, and helps the team, because it keeps him off the court for a little bit longer.
Oh, come on.
Listen, Russell Westbrook is like any medication on the market. When you're prescribed the right doses and you take it as instructed, you're fine. The minute you try to take a little extra is where you run into a problem. There's only so many 3 for 17 days with 10 rebounds and 10 assists you can handle, okay? And I know that Chris Paul's reaching that stage in his career where that might be the case, but at least I know he's not going to take ill-advised threes, or he's going to take ill-advised shots. He's going to take the right shot in the right moment, and it's going to be, to make or miss league from there. But the ideal situation for a Russell Westbrook in the game is 20 to 25. And if you want to stagger it to where he's in the clutch moments with your 20 and 25, fine, so be it. But he's at the stage of his career where this is his role now. This is where he needs to be. And maybe having a Paul in there who can be a facilitator, has good IQ on both ends of the floor. He may not have the quickness or a lot of the things that made him a high steal output, but he knows where to be. He can give you that. I just don't have an appetite for a Harden Paul backcourt, especially at their respective stages of their career. Also, I'm worried about injury history. You've already got 2 stars that have questionable injury history.
Mm-hmm.
Paul is starting to get there. I mean, he's been there, but like in recent years, it's just been bad timing of those injuries as opposed to just being injured all the time. His injuries are coming at crucial points. Kind of like Williamson over at the Pelicans. It's so much when you're injured now at this point. I don't think he's had a playoff run because he's been hurt. I think Randall at the Knicks has been hurt during the playoffs consistently. These are all things that you have to worry about, and now he's having an injury history when it matters, that will have you cause for concern. Which, I mean, hypothetically, you think you can absorb that if you have a Harden, a George, and a Leonard on your team. It's like, all right, well, if he gets hurt, we still got these guys. And maybe theoretically, if you have them all on the floor consistently, maybe you stagger their minutes to maybe they could keep them fresher towards the end of the year. So as I'm talking about it, there are more positives to it. But Like I said, I have an appetite for a Paulo Harden backcourt just because I've seen it before. And I've seen it when they were both in better physical shape, like when they were both closer to their primes. I don't have an appetite for it.
I see.
No, I love. Go.
I see the post.
Oh, what do you have there?
The post you're.
Oh yeah. No, I love how we just compared Chris Paul on the Clippers to a sponsored Medicare Part B medication on late night TV. I love it.
Oh my
well
God.
done, Joe. But E-Rock, what do you think of the comparison? I don't know if I think I agree. Chris Paul, the Russell Wilson comparison. Do you agree with it?
I mean, to an extent, yeah. I could see. I see where he's coming from. Russell Wilson. Well, they benefited off. He's a situation I'd never seen before, where a team overpaid for him so much, where he was going to make $35 million.
Not like he gave it up, right? Yeah.
And when they get him for like $1 million, $2 million, like
league minimum. I'm pretty sure
a measly $1 million. Chris Paul wouldn't be very expensive. I mean, I'll tell you 3 teams off the top of my head that would be a better fit than the Clippers. Clippers are a terrible. I actually tend to like Russell West. I would prefer Russell Westbrook at this point in his career than Chris Paul at this point in his career. Because Russell Westbrook also is he's available on the court. He doesn't have a history of injury like that. And yes, he does need to temper his shots, but he's also a freaking hoss going to the rim.
Still, which is crazy.
Still, I know. He keeps himself in really good shape. He's a freak athlete. I could say, 3 teams I could see. Philadelphia would be a decent one, having as a backup point if he assumes the role that he had in Golden State. Philly's a good one. Dallas is a decent one as a backup point guard to both the two main stars. And another one could be, I don't want to say the Lakers, so I'm not going to. I am going to say the Knicks. I'm going to say the Knicks possibly. The Knicks as a backup to Jalen Brunson wouldn't be a bad thing. So, it seemed like decent fits. Yeah, and plus the Knicks have a lot of cap room. Yeah.
Well played. Well played.
Yes, sir.
Moving on to our last topic of the day.
All right.
Speaking of someone who's being compared to a bag of chips on many aspects, Rudy Gobert. And this is stemming from what I saw Kendrick Perkins say.
I saw that too.
Oh, when you saw that, E-Rock, you had to have known. Oh, we're gonna talk about this on one of the shows today.
Kind of figured.
Yeah. And I don't blame you. Now, I'll give my brief 2 cents. And then if needed, I guess I could summarize or explain later. But anyway, it's always good when you're on a podcast to explain the format of the podcast that you're about to explain. But anyway, Kendrick Perkins says that he regrets his defensive player vote. Why? That was a regular season award where you're supposed to only have the regular season in mind. So his reasoning, I don't even care if he's regretting the vote because he thought he made a mistake then. His reasoning is flawed. His reasoning, he said, was, well, because in the playoffs he was exposed. That has nothing to do with that vote then. That vote then was based on the regular season. And as it should be, playoff teams are smartly finding ways to get the best mismatches for them, the best matchups to take advantage of. So Rudy Gobert being a perimeter defender was never going to be a strong suit, was never really going to be in the cards for him. And so to hold that against him being torched by Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic on the perimeter, totally unfair. Even good perimeter defenders at the guard positions are going to look silly. So his reasoning, I think, is totally flawed. And I don't understand this at all. So we vote for the regular season awards. We see someone flame out in the playoffs, and then we say, see, this is why they shouldn't have been second team All NBA. No, that's not how these awards are supposed to work. E-Rock, your response, please.
I don't think that's exactly what he meant. And I see what he's talking about, like buyer's remorse when it comes to his vote. I don't necessarily I see you're right. It's a regular season award. Is that fair? I don't know. That's up to, I guess. But I mean, here's the thing, though. Yeah, in the playoffs, I do like. It's also just because he doesn't have a lot of love from his colleagues or from his his fellow NBA players. He's one of the most hated players in the NBA by his peers.
Voted.
Hmm.
Yes.
So, yeah, yeah, it was actually voted. Yeah, I mean, literally, it was voted, and it still cracks me up that Draymond Green did not crack the top 5. That was like, that just goes to show even LeBron James and him who get into it, they're like really good friends. So that just shows how much people hate Rudy Gobert, I guess. Trudy Gobert. No, it's the fact that Cat had a better series against Yoke. Like, everyone's going to have issues with Michelob Ultra, but Cat was playing better defense on him, and that's the defensive player of the year. I get the spirit of where Kendrick was coming from, or where Perk was coming from. I do. I get the spirit of it. I don't think it's completely unfair, but because he deserves a lot of criticism. But in terms of the letter of the law, when it comes to nominations and voting, yeah, he had great numbers in the regular season. He was a very good defensive player. I think that Victor was a very good option, and if Giannis had played more of the season, I think he was on track to win it. And same with Joel Noel. So yeah, I mean, I'm somewhere in the middle of like, I think he meant something different, and I understand his passion or dispassion for it, I should say, and I understand, but I get where you're coming from because it is a regular season award. But I mean, you're stuck with him, so oh well. It's not like you gave up a ton of everything for it. I mean, he's a bag of Lance chips and a Shasta over here.
But we don't have to guess what he meant. Like, this is what he said. His whole reasoning when they asked why, or he wasn't asked why. When he gave his initial statement, he said because of him being exposed in the playoffs. That is what he said. I didn't make him say that. So we don't have to guess what he meant. Those were his exact words.
We said buyer's remorse. He said in hindsight. I mean, and that's what I'm saying. I think again, I heard it differently. I heard what he said, but I heard the context of it as well. And
that's the context, though.
The context was talking about like how he just will let you down. He will let you down in the big moments, and then he had done that occasionally in the regular season, and he has like lapses. He has, I mean, but he had his numbers support him winning it, but. I think he like what.
Here's his quote, Iraq. Here's his quote. He's the first player that we have ever seen every single time in the postseason that becomes a defensive liability. He has a tarnished Defensive Player of the Year award. Yeah. Again, that's the exact quote. So we don't need any more context. We don't need to continue guessing what he meant. That's what he said, and he uses the postseason as his reasoning.
Well, I agree with the second part of his statement. 100% a tarnished defensive Player of the Year award because. Yeah, I mean, when you go into the playoffs, you expect the Defensive Player of the Year to continue being that caliber player, and his drop off efficiency-wise was an abomination in most cases. I mean, it's he deserved it in the regular season, but yeah, it's like it's got a asterisk on it because it's like, damn, dude, you couldn't have kept it up like going on forward. So that's where I'd go. I guess I'd lean more that way.
Well, again, that's a totally different conversation. But again, we don't need to guess what he meant. We can't just now say, well, this is probably what he's trying to say. This is exactly what he said, and his reasoning is flawed, regardless. But in my opinion, at least. But go ahead, Joe.
Well, I consume a lot of content. And among the things that I've been consuming is KG's podcast with Paul Pierce. Yeah. And they got into conversations about when these things are voted upon. And KG's of the sense, regular season's regular season. Paul Pierce is of kind of like the Kendrick side, where it's just like, you know what? We shouldn't vote on this until like a week into the postseason. Because I feel like every time we do something during the regular season, they do something and what's being missed in all of this is that what's unique about the playoffs as opposed to the regular season? You're seeing the same people every game, series by series. You can actually sit there and you're game planning specifically for each individual on that other team. Now, do you do that in the regular season? Absolutely. Are you going to see them 2 days from now in the regular season? Not all the time. Very rarely, if at all. So, with that being said, it's very easy to pick out weaknesses in a team. And also, another thing about the playoffs is matchups. Matchups are everything in the playoffs. Yes. And sometimes you'll have a 2 versus a 7. That's just a matchup problem. Whether they're a 7th seed because of injury, whether they're a 7th seed because they're Jimmy Butler and they take side quests during the regular season and only show up in the playoffs, any number of things can happen where, certain matchups come to pass and then, we are where we are. So all of those factor in. I factor all of that to say is, it's very easy to say now, oh, what a defensive liability he is against the Mavericks based on what they can do. But also, why are we switching everything if that's the case? If you're Minnesota, why are we switching when we know our center, R5, has the lateral movement of a snail? That's a schematic problem. Yeah. And that's why a lot of people were calling for Naz Reid to be in the closing minutes of a game. If you know that the game's going to be close, and then you're going to have your perimeter offensive weapons on the other side are going to predominantly dominate the ball towards the end of the game. That's a schematic problem. That's a coaching issue as far as the lineup set up. But to go back to the original point, as far as Perkins' argument against Gobert, it's easy to say in hindsight that you regret your pick, and fine, that's great, but it is a regular season award, and in the regular season, more often than not, he was the best defensive player in the game. Yeah, and a lot of other things. I can't speak to how it's voted, but a lot of the things that I hear on how it's voted: games played, record of the team, impact on the game, and then you look at the stats, and then you break down if you have a tie or if you have something that's when you get to the finalists, you have your deal breakers, your tie breakers. So let's just say Wemby and Gobert side by side, they were the best defensive players in the team in the league. Okay, what were the team's records? Obviously, the Spurs and the Wolves are in 2 different opposite sides of the spectrum. Very easy to elevate Gobert in that point. If everything else is equal. So his argument as to why he hates it is a little bit flawed only because everyone knows that this is a regular season award. Also, another thing everyone knows is that more often than not, whoever the MVP is of the season is usually bounced in the second round. It just happens to work out that way. It just does. I remember a season I'm watching back in the day. I'm watching Utah and the Warriors back in the Baron Davis days, and they were playing the Jazz, and Nowitzki literally got his MVP award that season. They got bounced in the first round.
That was it. Yeah, it was like, and they gave him
we've been having arguments about this like since then on when we're voting for these awards because you see the MVP is bounced in the first and second round, and they're collecting an MVP award, and you're like, oh, well, he wasn't an MVP in the postseason, was he? Because they're watching from Cancun. He's at a press conference completely away from the playoffs getting his award as opposed to getting it on the court. So that's the only thing that I disagree on. Is like, listen, we gave him to him in the regular season because he was the best defensive player in the regular season. Now, if you want to retract that statement because he sucks in the playoffs, talk to the coach who keeps putting him on an island and switching on defense in 2 consecutive plays, watching him dance on ice skates. That's a schematic problem. That's an ability to pre-plan, pre-game planning for the same opponent every other day type of problem. So I don't agree with the reasoning for it, but I mean, everybody knows that he's a statue.
Yeah, it's mainly. I think that's more. I agree with you. It's schematic. I think you said everything. everything he said. That's almost the exact way I feel. So Chris Finch is more of the issue on that one.
Well, and then let's take this a step further. If you go with what Perkins saying, if you go with what now Paul Pierce is advocating for, what is that ultimately hurting? And one of the big issues of the NBA, no one cares about the regular season. So, except for us diehards, like we've been tuned in every day, right? But let's speak now for the average American consumer of sports. Oh, I don't watch the NBA play. I don't watch until the NBA playoffs come around, or I don't watch until March Madness comes around. Right. So now, by advocating what you're advocating for, you continue to diminish, you continue to water down the regular season and any impact that could have had. So to now try to push back the date of voting or what you should take into consideration to the first round of the playoffs or 1.5 rounds into the playoffs. Why play the regular season? This is an issue that the NBA needs to do a much better job on and trying to get fans more invested. And this is where the media comes into play. Get more invested about the NBA regular season. And this is what will help the long-term stability and growth of the league. So advocating for for these MVP awards, for Defensive Player of the Awards, for Rookie of the Years. Yeah, so is Wembanyama now ineligible for the Rookie of the Season award? No, obviously not. Right? That's silly on its face. So you have to think next level when you advocate for something. What are the repercussions? What are the long-term effects of what I am saying here? And so that's why I firmly disagree with Perkins and Mr. Paul Pierce. But hey, they got us talking about it, so I think they won. Gentlemen, that is all we have for today. We are 51 minutes in. I think we had 20 minutes of NFL talk and then 40 minutes of AI talk with Gobert. So I think we had a good day today. Closing thoughts, where can we find you? And or funny faces you want to make. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, you can find me at Java Joe Sports on the X. Shout out to this wonderful platform by our fellow gentlemen here, Curious Sports Pulse. Shout out to them for having me on. Plan to see you guys regularly. Closing thoughts is I think there's a very clear delineation between regular season and postseason. Clearly, by the advent of there being more postseason awards, like they're giving awards for conference finals. So like they're clearly trying to show some sort of delineation. But listen, when you got guys, they're in the league for a reason. They're at this stage for a reason. When you're in the Final Four, these guys are smart. They're not stupid. Okay, so when you can focus all your attention on a certain team for every other day, crap's bound to happen. Shout out to Cat. They figured you out, Brett. That's all I got to say. Shout out to teams going to Cancun, Indiana. Enjoy your time in Galveston or Cancun, wherever you decide. Likewise, Minnesota, enjoy your time in Cancun, Barbados, wherever you want to be. Unless Cat grows into a tiger somehow and not, the cat that I hear crying at my trash cans every night. And shout out to sports.
Well, Joe, yes, more of this every day. See you, Joe. What? Before you go, you rock. Here's Mr. Here's Jordan. Oh, I loved it. Rudy has that puppy in him. A pit bull in the regular season, but a puppy in the playoffs. Cat is that kitten in him. Go ahead, G-Rock.
I'm not even going to go there. I'll let Jordan do that. He's the reason. Well, that's why responding to what both of y'all said, is that's why the in-season tournament was created, because it was supposed to get more intrigue, and it benefited the Indiana Pacers because it got them on the mat in people's eyes, and it gave Lakers fans false hope. So I don't know. Good, and it's got the pros and cons and pros.
Yeah.
So now, I mean, I'm gonna got an interview coming up, but after that, everyone check into Scoutcast Media. Going to be doing me and Jordan going to hop on. Jordan Ramos are going to hop on, do a little bit of bantering about tonight's game and other things. And also, thanks for having me on there, Sir Gabriel. Find me at LivingGood09 at Twix, at the Twixer. And I will see y'all next time.
See you later, you rock.